Hey everybody, in today's video I'm going to go over KPIs and how you can chart them in Excel to show whether you're on track to meet your goal or whether you're over. So to do this and to keep it simple, I'm going to create multiple fields here. So one for a metric, like let's say operating expense, and then for my actual and for my target. So let's say my goal is to keep my operating expenses at no more than $10,000. And currently I'm at $9,000. So that would mean that I'm on target. And what I'm going to do is create a field for % of target, which is just going to take the actual divided by the target. So I'm 90% to plan. And now what I'm going to do is also create some different buckets that I want to group these variances into. So determine whether I'm on target, whether I'm slightly over my goal, or if I'm well over. Okay, so to do this, I'm going to use some if statements. So I'm going to say if this value is less than or equal to 1, that means I'm on target. In which case, I'm going to take this value. Otherwise, I'm going to take a value of 0. The reason being, I don't want these buckets to overlap. It's either in here, or in here, but not in multiple. For the slightly over, I'm going to use an if statement, but this time I'm going to use an and function as well to say, okay, this has to be greater than 1. And let's say I want slightly over to be anything up to 25% over. So for the second and if statement, I'm going to say this has to be less than or equal to 1.25. And if that criteria is all met, then I take that value. Otherwise, it's going to be 0. So that's slightly over. So again, it's not slightly over, so that's fine. It should be 0. For the well over, I'm going to say, okay, if the variance, if this % of target is greater than 1.25, so more than 25% over, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the min function because I'm going to cap this at 2 or that value. I'm going to show you why I'm capping this in a second here. So if it's not more than 1.25, then I'm going to assign a value of 0. So right now, this is 0, and this is only 0.9, which is correct because I don't want them overlapping. I'm also going to create another field for the remainder, and this is just for the purpose of the chart I'm going to create. In this case, I'm going to take the maximum value of either 0 or 2 minus this value. And the reason being is the goal should be, I'll put this in the same format here, the goal should be that this adds up to 2. A sum of 2, because imagine the top half of the circle being 1 and the bottom half being another 1, so together they add up to 2. So that's my goal here, and that's why I want to cap this at no more than 2, and this also at 2. So now that I've got that, I'm going to insert a chart, and I'm going to go to the donut chart. Hit OK. And stretch this out, get rid of that header. And right now, I don't need all these fields. The only ones I'm interested in are the categories that I created, the on target, the slightly over, well over, and the remainder. So I'm going to right click, select data, and uncheck these ones. So I've just got these. So now I want to color coordinate these different categories. So if it's on target, select that item. I'm going to set it to green. If it's slightly over, let's say I'll use a dark or moderate yellow. If it's well over, use red. And for the remainder, I'm just going to use a light gray, just to sort of fill in the rest of the circle. Now, right now, this starts at the top here, which is not what I want. So I'm going to format my data series. And for the angle of the first slice, this is where you want your first slice to be. And so I don't want to start here. Think of this as 0, 90, 180, 270. So this is where I wanted to start. So I set that angle to 270 degrees. And now it starts from here, which is where I'd want it to be. You can also adjust the donut hole size. So if you wanted a bit thicker, you can shrink down the size of that hole. So down to 50%, that looks a bit better. And so right now, 9,000 on target looks good. If I go up to 10,000, still looks good. But if once I get to 11,000, now I'm over budget. Now it's got that yellow yellow color in effect. If I got to 12,000, I'm still at 120%, so I'm still in the slightly over bucket. If I go up to 13,000, however, now I'm going to be more than 25% of my target. Right now I'm 30% of my target, 130%, so 30% over. So now this becomes red. Right, so if I go to 15,000, it's going to continue growing higher and higher. Let's say I get to 25,000, so I'm well over the limit. Right, this is where it's important to cap this at 2, because otherwise, these calculations could not work out properly, and that's why I wanted to make it finish at that. Now, if you don't like this little line here at the end, what you can do is select to have no line for the border, and that erases. So now it's got a clean circle, no interruptions within it. So as you can see with this KPI, now it'll automatically update based on what you've entered, and you can see how far along you are. The one thing I would also do here is I'd get rid of the border for this, and also this legend, because the idea being the KPI can speak for itself. The only other thing you may want to consider is adding in a text box. So let's say I add a text box into here, and let's say I call this operating expense. Or what you could even do, instead of typing it in actually now, you could just link to that item. So link to that, and we've got that. And again, let's get rid of any lines and any fill colors, just so it's easier to blend in. And I can bold this, center it, make it larger to make it stand out a bit. And then what I'm also going to do is insert another text box for the actual amount. So in this case, I'm going to reference my actual value here. Oops. And enter, and now I've got that. And one of the reasons why you want to get rid of any color or any borders is you see right now it doesn't look terribly nice because it's overlapping with that value. So in case you wanted it to potentially overlap a little bit with your chart, having that border and having that background color is going to negatively affect it. So that's where you get rid of the line and you get rid of the fill color, and now it's a lot smoother and easier to make it look exactly how you want. So again, we can bold it again, make it larger, whatever the case may be. Now we've got a gauge chart that can track our KPI. So imagine multiplying this by multiple KPIs. You could have one side by side, one next to each other, so it's a lot easier to track your KPIs and how you're doing. And obviously you can hide these columns, hide whichever columns you don't need. These are really just helper columns, or push them off to the side so that they're calculating properly. And so if you wanted to extend this to another one, like let's say we've got sales expense, right? Let's say we create another KPI. Let's say this time our actual is 5,000 and our target is $6,000, right? All we can do is just copy these formulas down. The same logic is going to apply. Then we can do is copy this over, right, to create another chart. And again, this is where the fill color, not having that, is helpful. Can drag this down so we got a different layout here. Now, so the one thing you may just need to do is update the coloring. So if you need to get those legends back, what you can do is the add chart element legend. Let's put at the bottom here. And so we've got our on target. If I select that, set that to green, slightly over to yellow, a little over to red. So those ones are good. And then make sure you unselect the values that you don't need. Hit OK, and now we're back to having that same sort of setup. And now you can add the text boxes, that sort of thing. So not terribly hard to duplicate it once you've created that. The key thing is I would put this in, set up some sort of a template like this where you've got your on target amounts calculated and that sort of thing. So same sort of thing. You can track your values and where you're over or under by. And it's easy now to manage multiple KPIs, so you can include this as part of a dashboard or sort of a starting page on your Excel file to see how you're doing across many metrics. So that's how you can track KPIs using donut charts in Excel. And let me know what you think, and hope you found this useful. Thanks for watching.